as well. Yes, thank you. Um, yeah, and so again, my backstory. I basically started in real estate way too early. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad before college, and got the idea to house hack before Bigger Pockets coined the term. A two-bedroom condo. My sister and I lived it there for a year, and after she graduated, rented out, pay back my dad, cover the expenses, and have some beer money left over. And our primary focus right now is in infill development. I do also invest in a few other people's syndication as well outside of California. So feel free to ask me any questions. I mean, if I don't know the answer, there's a good chance I know somebody that can help you as well. So I'm gonna hand it over to our excellent speaker today. I mean, I there's so much talk about co-living lately, especially, I mean, maybe it took a pause during COVID, but I it's coming back with a vengeance, so to speak. So I'm really excited to have Derek Sanders here joining with us. Derek, start wherever you like. How did you get into this wonderful world of co-living?
Yeah, so I guess first, I just want to make sure everyone has a base level understanding of the asset, what it is. I just want to make sure I don't have to define it and go into any depth. I assume most people here probably lived with a roommate at some point, maybe that's sort of the genesis of the co-living concept, is just sharing space with other people. And I guess the asset is more or less formalizing that product is really what we're doing here on a more large scale. Um, I guess I got into real estate from a planning background. I was doing more master planning, urban design, a lot of economic development consulting, and then I got into real estate after going through Columbia's MRED program. Moved to Southern California. I jumped around in some of the larger institutional shops like CIM and Greystar before joining Six Peak. It was really just even before Six Peak, it was actually just a group called Harriman Capital, a really small startup shop. And they bought some sites in LA and needed a development manager to bring those projects through permitting and entitlements, and really just worked on the deals day to day. So we, essentially, I guess I was doing more consulting with them at first. It turned into a full-time job. And I've been with Six Peak for about 3 years going on. We've completed one project in North Hollywood. We have two additional projects under construction, and then have a pipeline of 5 additional co-living buildings that we're looking to capitalize over the next year or two. So that's sort of the high level view. I guess Six Peak as an entity is sort of focused on co-living as a main strategy, but we also are looking to diversify in other interesting verticals that might take advantage of some demographic trends. We did one memory care deal in out near the airport, near LAX. And we also have invested in traditional multi in LA as well. So my day-to-day is here in LA, and that's where Six Peak Development is an actual vertical entity from all the way through capital raising through construction and development.
And you mentioned this earlier too, so I was planning to get to it, just to set the table or set the foundation for folks. You know, what people talk about co-living project, and there might be different flavors or variations. What are people usually referring to, or what are some characteristics of a co-living project?
Yeah, so it's primarily you're sharing, you're building a typical apartment unit. It looks and feels like an apartment, at least iteration here in LA. We build an apartment, just has more bedrooms than your traditional 1 or 2 bedroom or studio unit. So depending on location and the zoning, it ranges between 3 and 6 bedrooms. And then it shares a kitchen common area. And then we try to give as many bedrooms, ensuite bathrooms as possible. And that's sort of the high level take. And then of course within the building, we'll try to do light amenity, either be a roof deck or some sort of common entertainment room, or just somewhere people could do co-working on site. Our thesis on co-living is a little bit more on the affordability side. So there's some operators out there that tend to over amenitize and kind of have a quote unquote luxury co-living product. We're trying to focus on what can we deliver a fully furnished bedroom with all utilities included, what is that base rent, and as we get as low as possible, and that's sort of like what we're trying to achieve in our thesis for what co-living is.
And so for co-living, I mean, because we're in LA and all that, but like technically it could, I mean, how different is it compared to student housing or senior living? Like, can the same design be applied to, other than just young professionals?
I mean, we've taken a lot of cues from student housing. I would say it's a little bit like the product tends to be nicer. The FF&E program is more, sophisticated than your typical student housing. We're
And
only
sorry, can you explain what FF&E is for
like,
folks that aren't familiar?
so your fixtures, furnishings, and equipment. So basically anything that if you turn the building upside down, anything that wouldn't stick to the building is sort of considered FF&E. So
That's a
we,
good way to describe it.
we're we put in, a mattress, a bed. There's usually a desk in every bedroom. People come in and bring their own sheets and linens and stuff like that. But we'll completely furnish outfit the kitchen, provide a couch, a TV. So really people come in, they can move on day one and basically unpack a suitcase and start living there.
And even the plates, forks,
Correct.
mugs, and all that.
Correct.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah. And so as we go along, folks, feel free to type in the in the chat box any questions you have. I will be monitoring them, and we'll in general, if it's relevant or just in what we're talking about, I'll probably refer to it. But in general, I'm gonna keep them to the end. So let's start from the basic again, Derek. Like zoning requirement wise, or for these projects, what kind of zoning is required, or where are you guys looking for projects? How do you
Yeah,
know if it can even be built?
this is a really good, I mean, this is sort of where we see some of the biggest opportunities is because, I mean, LA, Southern California, and maybe California as a whole, we have a really broken land use system. It really disincentivizes development as a whole and makes it very hard and complicated to get projects through entitled and permitted. In LA specifically, we have a unit density based limitation on many parcels. And co-living is sort of a way to unlock additional value on a given site because rather than building, say, a 2-bedroom unit, you're able to build a 6 with the same zoning and then get that extra NOI from building more floor area and bringing in more tenants, more paying tenants than you would otherwise be able to see. So the interesting arbitrage is that LA is super restrictive, but there's no limitation per se on the number of, I mean, there's like an effective limitation, which is probably around like 6 or 7. You don't want to go over that number, but LADBS and city planning doesn't see co-living as an actual use. So you're kind of able to skirt a gray area of the code that doesn't really define or cap the number of bedrooms you have in a given unit. So a good example, we have a site in Mar Vista. It's zoned for 19 units. A traditional developer would be able to put like 19 studios, 1s and 2s in there. Maybe you'd have like 35 people in that site. We've designed and are about to break ground on a 19 unit, 112 bedroom project. So all of the units are either 6 or 4 bedrooms. And that's, basically maximizing your floor area ratio, unit count. Everything is basically to the zoning limit, where you'd never be able to achieve that same level of density with a traditional project. It probably wouldn't even pencil, honestly, from an underwriting standpoint if you're doing traditional.
Yeah, and if I guess I could try to add some color. I mean, definition of a unit, right? It's some kind of bedroom, some kind of living space. And how you guys are able to arbitrage or increase value, like you said, is you're being creative with the bedroom portion of it, because a bedroom just needs 2 means of egress. So even though you're calling something one unit, there could be more than just a traditional 2 or 3 bedroom. You said you guys are putting like 4 or 6 units in there,
We're putting, yes, like
or
6
sorry, four
bedrooms.
to six bedrooms in a
Yeah,
unit.
6 bedrooms per unit, and then that unit has one path of egress it enters. So it really, you walk in the front door and you're like, oh, this is an apartment, and it just has more bedrooms. And we try to, there's certain things in design that we attempt to do to make it more livable. Soundproofing, trying to make the STC ratings as high as possible between bedrooms. Just like adding those ensuite bathrooms so people aren't sharing a bathroom with a stranger. There's a lot of just like nuance in the design that we've sort of learned like trial by fire and figured out what works and what doesn't. And we also, we get a lot of feedback from our operators. And I don't I don't necessarily want to go into like a whole bunch on the operation side, but there's probably at least a dozen operators that actually manage co-living buildings. We're more focused on the actual fundraising, design, development, and construction of these assets that are ultimately managed by a third party.
Okay, and so do each of the bedrooms have their own bathrooms as well, or are you sharing bathrooms with folks?
Yeah, usually, I mean, we try to get as many en suites as possible. And if we do have a shared, it's usually between like one other person. But the bulk of our projects do have en suites, and like 100% of them are en suite.
And so, I mean, really, there's no zoning restrictions, right? You said there's not a designated use in the use code, so it could be R1, R2, R3, R4, any of all of the
It
above.
has to be zoned for multifamily. So usually you still have to have a multifamily designation. You could, I mean, you could, on a single family lot, you could build a, 10-bedroom house, right? And still, I guess, technically rent it out as
Like a
co-living if you
boarding
wanted
house
to.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah, so that's entirely feasible, but I think we are still trying to build multifamily products. We're also trying to scale as a business. So, there's that part of it, which is, the first iteration of co-living that we were building was single lot. Now we're getting into some of the larger, more sophisticated double lot, some TOC projects, more complex entitlements. We actually have one right now that's a 110 unit, 365 bed projects. It's an entitlement. So like we've graduated from some of the smaller, more like boutique development and trying to scale up to a more institutional size.
Okay, and so I mean, design wise, FAR or density, like between an R3 and R4, it doesn't really impact too much for you guys, or what kind of
It
considerations do you have to put
Yeah,
in
it
there?
does. I guess the one thing to note is like if you're on an R3 lot, it's very rare that a developer in LA is able to maximize FAR without getting some sort of like state density bonus to increase the unit count. So we're at our formula, we end up building more bedrooms or more units with more bedrooms. On an R4 lot, for example, because you're able to build more units, you could do a more maybe call it traditional unit mix. You have some co-living that's like fours, fives, and then maybe also sprinkle in some studios or one bedrooms and two bedrooms just to kind of balance it out for lending purposes or for financing purposes, to make the product sort of feel more like a traditional multifamily building, which may have potential benefits. But in terms of like fitting it into a specific neighborhood, it does definitely change how we think about co-living per the zoning. um, I guess we could maybe go through the examples in a minute, but we have like a TOC project. It's under construction right now. It's on Melrose Avenue in Oxford, sort of like East Hollywood. That project has everything from studios, threes, fours, and five bedrooms. So it really kind of like looks and feels more like a traditional multi. And then the stuff that's in the R3 zone might just be all six bedrooms to really try to maximize that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I mean, I always appreciate people that think outside the box a little bit, and you know, um, and just I think, like you said, the current zoning law, and even with TOC bonus, like it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons I mean, we won't get too far off track, but the whole ADU thing, I feel like it makes a lot of sense for a lot of folks, both the owners and local residents, and for the renters. And so Jonathan brought up a good question, and I wanted to get to it myself as well. How does the parking requirement works for co-living projects?
Okay. So I guess in a non-TOC entitlement, you're required to park two spaces per unit if it's over three bedrooms, which is basically where everything we're doing is over three bedrooms. So it's actually an interesting arb rather than building, like a developer is building many, many units, we'll end up parking like one to one. So we're usually parking on a six-bedroom unit about a third of the spaces. So a six-bedroom unit only gets two parking spaces. That's LA code.
And do you guys find challenges when you go out and try to lease these places, or you guys are usually in a location where public transit is actually very, very reasonable?
Yeah, so I think we're still basically pricing these in a similar bracket to what people would probably be looking in a like rent stabilized, or I guess like an older apartment building that may not have parking anyways. So it's like, we're trying to just lower the rent enough where people either have the option to not have a car, or trying to reach that market, or just find street parking. I would say it's a little bit more friction on the west side, but we've seen, in East Hollywood, for example, people are okay maybe giving up a car or just searching for street parking. Um, it's definitely been an issue, but I think, especially younger generation is not as attached to, cars as some of the older millennials and older folks out there who want to have a car in the city.
Okay, great. And we found the land. We have our designs in place. Can you talk a little bit about the entitlement process? Like, do these need to go through neighborhood hearings, or are they just sort of director review type of project?
That's entirely depending on what you're trying to build, I guess. LA is so LA zoning is so lot
Messed up.
specific. It's kind of a minefield. So it depends if you're within like a specific plan, or if you find an unencumbered magic R3 parcel with like one single family home and you're not subject to SB 330 and whole long list. You could probably just go straight to plan check and pull permit, after you clear fire and all the other clearances. Um, Most of the stuff that we're looking at now, because it tends to be a little larger, is usually subject to site plan review or some other discretionary action, along with some, we try to, like, if you are going to go through the hurdles through the city, it's probably best to try to get some bonuses, either through TOC or state density bonus, just to make the project pencil a little better. It's kind of hard when you're just going through a site plan review and you don't get much for the time and the effort to make the project work. So it runs a gamut. We have three projects that kind of went through a complex entitlement, and the rest are all by right. I just think the by right is becoming more complex and more challenging as the state, I guess, continues to pass laws like SB 330, where they require replacement units.
Can you talk a little bit on high level what SB 330 is for folks?
Yeah, so SB 330 was supposed to be a streamlining act, primarily, which I guess for some of like the Northern California folks here, it probably does speed up some of the public discretionary approval process in cities like San Francisco and Oakland, where you have really long approvals and you're going through multiple hearings. One of the things they added into as part of the bill, was that if you have a lot that has any more than, let's say, 2 units on it, or two or more, and those units are occupied, anyone that makes below a certain threshold on an AMI rent schedule, those units that you are essentially knocking down to build the bigger project need to then be replaced on a 1-for-1 basis, and also deed restricted to an affordability level that matched the original tenant's rent profile. So from, if you're underwriting a deal and you're looking at it and okay, I got to replace, 2 units, and they only pay, the rent schedule says only could collect $500 a month, or maybe $700 a month in these 2 units. And then I only could build 8 units on the site. You're kind of like, eating into a big chunk of your NOI, and the project won't pencil. And that's
Right.
essentially, yeah. That's a short of
Yeah, no, no,
it's
I mean, it's a meaty bill, so that's why I wanted to say just as a high level, so folks that
yeah,
that are not in development world, it's one of those great wisdoms that the state has to try to do a good thing, but a lot of times it ends up having unintended consequences or backfires.
right. And
Um,
this is especially problematic if you guys, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of interest in this group, probably with like small infill, boutique style, like ADU, or just like small unit. It pretty much eliminates all that small infill building that you would see by like a mom and pop, or just like a small group of people who want to put up a project. It makes the barrier to entry so much higher to try to figure out what pencils, and really only just like allows the institutional players to stay out and actually do deals, which is, I feel like the more developers you have that are building different products and multiple scales, the better for everyone in the housing situation, ultimately. So it's definitely problematic in the long run.
yeah, yeah. And so I know you said it runs the gamut, but by right, how long might it take before you can
Pre-COVID
pull
or before COVID, it wasn't that
uh,
bad.
let's say pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, we'd probably be able to draw plans and get through plan check on, say, like a medium-sized building would maybe take like 18 months to get the permit. Now we're seeing that expand to like 24 plus months across the board from, from actually acquiring the land, going through a design process with an architect, and then submitting to the city, probably like 24 plus months.
Yeah, and when you say medium, you mean like what, 10,000 square foot lot, maybe, kind of thing,
No,
or
yeah,
bigger
yeah,
than that?
10, yeah, like 10 to 15,000 square foot lot. Maybe your building size is like 50,000 square feet, roughly. It's maybe 60,000 on the gross. So it's definitely taking longer. It's hard. Normally LEDBS, you'd be able to walk in and actually meet people face to face. Now you send an email and it goes into a black hole, and maybe someone responds to you in 2 weeks. So
Yeah, and then for the three more complicated ones that you said you did, I don't know if you got if you got through entitlement or not yet, but how long? I'm just curious, how long did they take?
yeah, the entitlement on one took about 4 months. That was a TOC project in Westchester. Another one took about six, and then our third is has been submitted to the city now for 6 months, and I'm still waiting to hear like what they're looking for in terms of like next steps. So
Okay,
COVID has definitely made it really slow, and
and
it's
then
took
through DBS to pull permits another year, 6 months, or
probably about a year.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm. That also includes your design time of actually, getting through CDs, which on a larger project, just, you have a lot of coordination between different trades, different scopes of work that just take a while.
okay. Um, I know construction is your forte. I actually, since the questions pop up, I actually want to switch gears to talk more a little bit about the financing, and we can talk about both the loan or the debt and equity piece, if
Yeah,
that's okay.
we could go. That's fine. Yeah. There's a
How does,
question up
I mean,
there.
for you guys' project, like, how do you usually finance them, or what's your capital stack looking like?
So we typically have like a GP and an LP on the equity side. It's pretty typical. And then for the actual like construction debt, we've gone out to either I would say like bank financing, hard money loans, and now we're getting like we've just closed a loan more recently with like CMB. So we have a more traditional I guess like financing stack on projects. I think banks are starting to warm up to co-living. The real big question, I think, is probably more the takeout of the construction debt, because a lot of the larger projects haven't been like delivered or stabilized yet. There's always a question around cap rates, but I think if you're just looking to construct a project, I think there are a lot of smaller, mid-size, and even larger lenders that are like getting more comfortable around co-living. The pandemic didn't help us, but I think as we show good market results outside of like coming out of the pandemic, I think you'll start to see lenders being more comfortable around the space.
Okay, so the smaller, medium-sized guys are more comfortable, but when you're doing, well, I guess when you guys purchase a property or the land, do you guys usually just purchase it cash, or do you get a land loan, or?
Yeah, this is going. Yeah, so we have in for Six Peak, we have a sort of like a land investor that comes in at basically dirt, and then we basically, once we get permits and recapitalize the entire deal, we take him
Hmm.
out and bring him down to only 10% of the GP. And so that we use that as sort of like a revolving sort of like land loan fund. But that's sort of just like a special circumstance. A lot of developers will use any combination of equity and debt, might get land financing up to 50% of purchase price.
And when you pull the construction loan, are they comfortable sort of underwriting the full NOI you guys are projecting, or do they take a haircut, or what kind
We
of
got we get dinged a little. We get a little.
LTV they're lending on?
Yeah, it's a good question. We've seen most lenders come in conservatively. We're probably around like 60 to 65% loan to cost on the construction financing. And then we've used like anything from like mezz or just have a larger equity check to bridge it. So I mean, it's pretty competitive. It's fairly market. 65%, I would say, for multifamily is pretty good. We got maybe dinged a little bit for things like real estate taxes on the exit. So
Okay, and then there's a question: do you guys know usually, or do you guys favor commercial lending or private lending?
I mean, right now we want to be more programmatic lender, like we've used CMB, City Nationals, like a pretty well-known lender in LA and specifically in the construction space. So we'll probably continue that relationship. We're also looking for more of like a programmatic potential, like private lender that would be like a debt fund, that may be able to stretch and get up to like 70-75% loan to cost. Is some of the source to be looked at for capital.
Okay. And do you guys only do ground up construction, or have you taken on or know other people that, how do you approach it in a more adaptive reuse way, or you're trying to fix up an existing property instead of demoing everything and start brand new?
Yeah, so I think from a product standpoint, you're always like if you're shoehorning co-living into an existing building, you're never gonna get the same product, and it's always gonna be subpar compared to what you can build ground up. So that's like the first thing that I would, warn people taking adaptive use co-living. The second is in LA in particular, it's extremely hard to do because in an existing building, your parking is probably set, right? And if you're adding bedrooms, then you're probably busting through your parking requirement. And so you can't actually add more density to an existing project. So that's like one of the biggest non-starters in LA. In other markets like New York, they've done a lot of repurposed buildings and turn them into co-living. But I think there's also just a lot of friction in those spaces because maybe you only have one bathroom and then you're sharing 3 to 1. So you have a lot of suboptimal living situations where you might be able to squeeze more NOI out of the building. You're still not going to have the same like stickiness of the tenant overall in the long run. It's not going to be the better like environment and the more purpose built quality product that you're going to get as something that's ground up.
Just a lot more constraints to deal with
Yeah,
versus a blank canvas.
and I caution anyone tearing open an old building in LA and putting in new MEPs and trying to get up the code. That could easily become a nightmare, maybe even more complicated than ground up construction. So
Yeah.
something I've tried to avoid at all costs.
Yeah, we did that for our food hall. It's a brick warehouse Wonder Bread used to own, and yeah, that was challenging for sure.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's really
um,
tricky.
let's switch gears a little bit. I would, I know I wanted to talk about construction. Can you share with us a little bit? I mean, how different, or like, I guess actually let's go to some of your slides. I'm curious. I'm sure a lot of folks are, what do they look like, and how big, how tall are these buildings usually? Any special considerations you need to pay attention to before you break ground and all that?
Yeah, want me to share my screen really quick?
Yeah, I need to make you co-host, I think. Okay, you should be good to go now. Oh yeah, this is the one I was looking at.
Yeah, so everyone can see this. This is our first project as Six Peak Development that we delivered, and I guess we finished up in September, October of 2020, so right in time for the second wave of the pandemic in California. Um, this building right now, as it stands today, is about 90% leased, and we're getting about, I think, like just shy of 1,400 per bed on average in North Hollywood. This is right kind of, if anyone's familiar, it's kind of near like the Red Line stop in North Hollywood. You could walk there pretty quickly.
What is that material in the front? I've always been curious.
This
That
is
shiny
like
metal.
it's a corrugated metal panel,
Okay.
aluminum panel, and then the rest of the building is stucco with just these like accent fins. And the zoning here, we typically try to do a roof deck, but the zoning in North Hollywood doesn't allow for like an upper roof deck. So we scrapped that plan. We have a little, you can't see here, but in the backyard, there's like a small area. We have like a barbecue, some like tables, some chairs, and some landscaping. So the amenity space in these earlier buildings is really limited. It's just, you're kind of just like an apartment unit. I could walk through the floor plans really quick and see like what it typically looks like.
How many
Uh,
bedrooms is this?
this is 31 bedrooms
Oh
total. So you
wow.
have 4 6-bedroom units and 1 7-bedroom unit.
Oh wow.
And
Yeah, I
this is
saw
like this is
like how many AC units did you get? I saw on the roof there's
yeah.
like 12
We
or
do
13.
we're evaluating different AC systems. That one had this particular project has a AC zone per floor. The next iteration of co-living that we'll build and start construction on this year will have like VRF units in every
Oh
single
gosh, yeah, I
bedroom.
was gonna ask if you guys are doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like the next gen will have a little bit more control. So you kind of walk in on the second floor. There's stairs coming up from the ground level, which is just a garage and lobby. And then this configuration, we had to add an ADA bedroom on the first level, so that's accessible from like an ADA lift. And then you go up in essentially a triplex style configuration where each like level above has the bedrooms. Um, and then each of the bedrooms either has a dedicated or an ensuite bathroom in kind of this, really interesting MEP configuration.
Wait, so then there's not really kitchen or like living space in
On
this.
the second floor, so you look on the right here,
Oh,
you have,
that's all shared by everybody?
yeah,
Oh, okay, okay, gotcha.
yeah, this is your shared space. This is probably around, I would say about like 450 square feet. So it's actually much bigger than, I can actually show you what it looks like. This is actually the interior of the space right now.
Okay,
So this
yeah,
is
that's
what it
plenty
looks
of
like.
space. How big are these bedrooms usually? About what,
In this
125,
project,
150
about
usually?
100 to 110.
Oh, okay. And so for MEP, like would mini splits make more sense or
This is just a standard split system, was what we went with here, which works pretty well. You have one thermostat per floor, so only 3 roommates are splitting a thermostat.
okay.
Um, the goal is ultimately to get everyone their own thermostat in the bedroom, and that will happen through a VRF configuration. This is sort of a more budget version of what we expect to deliver in coming years.
How many parkings does this one have?
This is 10 parking spaces,
10.
so a third of the
Well, you're
building.
close to red line, yeah.
Mhm.
Laundry, how does that work?
So one laundry, and each of the, actually, no, sorry, this one has 2 laundry machines in each unit. So there's one on the bottom level and there's one on that fourth floor. There's a washer dryer right up here at the top.
Okay, so this is four. Okay, four is yeah. For some reason, I thought it was 3 stores or
It's,
three floors. Okay.
yeah, but you're coming up off so the first level is the garage and you walk out of the garage. It's on grade
Mm-hmm.
parking. And then you walk up to your main entry corridor. And we designed it this way just so we could save on egress. Like you only have one egress port in the entire building, and then all the units are basically coming off that egress
Yeah,
port.
and you said there's a little bit of a backyard or barbecue. What other amenities do you guys have in this one?
That's the only unfortunately that's the only amenity. That's sort
Okay.
of like the co-living 1.0 that we've designed. And
Okay.
a single lot project, so we're kind of constrained on the space. Basically the backyard is like the main gathering area, and then we just have the internal units where people hang out.
Yeah. How big was this lot? Did you say?
This was 7,350.
Oh, okay. Super cool. And the next one?
It's all the interior. So this project is on Melrose and Oxford. It's like right by, I guess the other major cross street is Western. And this is one of our TOC projects, so a bit longer entitlement, more complex. It's a tier 3 site, so we're able to really, really slash the parking requirement rather than doing anything subterranean. All the parking is on grade. 26 parking spaces for 141 bedrooms.
How many?
So really, really underparked here.
How many parking spaces?
26.
26 for, you said 400 bedrooms?
141 bedrooms
Oh,
total.
okay. Okay.
And this also has 5 affordable units for the TOC entitlement.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So you kind of see like we have a roof deck up on the top, and then there's a community space on the second level. So this is sort of like a co-working lounge type amenity. We'll have like a projector. There'll be like a wet bar, bunch of tables, chairs, couches. The first level has like a package room, bike storage, and a little like tiny smaller co-working space. And then the roof deck is, has a fire pit, a barbecue, tables, chairs, like a hammock, and then you just have this really awesome view of the Hollywood sign and Griffith.
This is 7 stories, looks like.
Yeah,
Okay.
42 units total. I'll show you just a
Awesome.
typical floor plan here. I'm going to zoom in. So this is like the second level showing that community room. We have a central courtyard that's open to sky, and then your units are kind of laid out along the perimeter. And we intentionally designed this so all the bedrooms are kind of on the exterior wall, so you get those good
Good
views
sunlight.
you get higher. The living spaces tend to face the internal courtyard. And then we have a combination of ensuite and shared bathrooms here. And again, this also has some studios. So like you see unit 207 is a studio. This floor plan kind of follows itself all the way up. And then we have everything from 3, 4, and 5 bedrooms. But lots of like private balcony spaces for bedrooms that'll help increase rents in those specific units.
And this one's built already, or I see a.
We're
I'm
getting there.
cheating. I'm cheating. I see a photos.
Yeah, this is sort of like that. The first one was a rendering. This is maybe about a month and a half ago. So we're expecting to finish this project in August,
Oh,
September.
nice.
Kind of see the roof deck up there. So yeah, it's more of like an institutional size co-living asset. Where
Yeah.
the other ones are
Gosh,
really
is that north or south? Look at all all those other developments happening there.
this is looking south. So this is if you head down Oxford, you would like run into Cape Town.
Mhm. Cool. Do you have any other ones or
No, I have another small lot one that's in construction, but it's very similar to
the
Bonnet.
Marvisa one? I think is.
Yeah.
Or okay. Uh, I think we. I mean, um, yeah, we don't have to show it. We're trying to get to the Q&As. But construction wise, I mean, there anything unique or things that people need to watch out for, or I guess probably depends on if you're what type of material you're using for some of these, right?
I would say the biggest lesson we've learned is really making sure that you have a good consultant team, especially the architects and MEPs, because that's where, especially in a co-living building with the amount of density of units and bathrooms, it really, really, really pays for itself. You always have MEP coordinations in the field issues that come up, but it just gets so tight when you have that much plumbing and that much electrical and HVAC equipment running through spaces. We tried to skimp on some of the MEP in the beginning, and it just doesn't turn out well. So that's one of the biggest lessons I could probably share on the construction side. And then hire a good GC.
Yeah, and so I know you mentioned operationally a lot of it you guys outsource, and that's not your day to day, but there are a fair amount of operational
Sure.
related questions.
Yeah.
If you don't know or don't feel comfortable, you can just we can defer it. But utilities, the rent people pay includes utilities, or how does that work?
Yeah. We try to make just one. They're basically tenants are paying one price because it would be too complex to sub-meter per bedroom. And we try to design these buildings as efficiently as possible. Everything's LED lighting. Your real expenses turns out to be HVAC systems. So we pay for all utilities. There's no bill back to tenants. We're also providing Wi-Fi, and we also do include a cleaning service for the unit that gets cleaned about once every 2 weeks. So it kind of takes away some of the pressure from roommates sharing a living environment.
Yeah, and I mean, for a regular bedroom, I mean, I guess it depends, but in those areas, I could easily be 1,600, 1,800 without any of those benefits that you just mentioned.
Right. Right. So it's all kind of wrapped up in one package. You want to make it so someone can literally just like, arrive with a suitcase, not have to think about like setting up, a Spectrum account. They move in, they get the Wi-Fi password, they're ready to go.
And how does the kitchen situation like? I mean, is it just first come first serve, or do people have to sort of like reservation system or anything like that?
Is this someone who's never lived with a roommate before?
I mean, the question is a little bit broad, so I'm trying to,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, so we do so on the actual like appliance side, we try to size everything for like a large family. Like so our refrigerator is sized for like 6 people. We have storage requirements we get from our operator to make sure everyone has enough like dry good storage. In terms of like how they use kitchen, I just, I don't never gotten involved in that. So I think it's more just like people are, self-managing in a shared environment. The
Called
same
being a
way you would
grown
see
up.
on Craigslist, someone gets a roommate, they use the kitchen and they're respectful, or at least I hope to be.
Yeah, my question, just jumping in here real quick on the first example you showed, I think there were seven roommates or 7 beds per kitchen. And
Correct.
I thought, whoa, that's more than, I've had roommates plenty of times, and I didn't write this question here, but I thought, 3 or 4 to a house or some kind of property is
Mhm.
pretty common. But I thought 7, I don't know how how tight that refrigerator gets. That was my first thought. I thought no one better
Yeah, I
be
mean,
get that
we have like
share it.
the refrigerator is pretty large. We just like the more tenants we have per unit, the more space we allocate for storage and refrigeration. Some tenants will get like a mini fridge to put in their bedroom. That's not completely uncommon. So we see that sometimes. We do have cleaning, so like someone will come through and like at least attempt to like make sense of the kitchen if there's a huge mess and if there are things we do thrown away. Um, but yeah, I guess it's really self-managed to an extent, that people are just comfortable, figuring out whose food is what and not stealing other people's orange juice.
How long are these leases usually, and like, what do you do when you turn over the units, or if there are damages to the common areas? Is it just kind of you you work that into your numbers?
We do have an FF&E reserve that we have to keep as part of underwriting to make sure we have replacement. Probably like on an average, like I guess like a 7-year replacement cycle for all the FF&E in the building. Um, but yeah, in terms of like I don't know if on our portfolio we've seen much damages. I mean, the buildings are so new, so I haven't had much experience with it. I think the operators have a way to deal with like tenants who are, disrespectful to other tenants and, move people to different units if they need to. You're talking about like lease term. The average lease term pre-pandemic was about 11 months. I think it's sort of compressed since then as people just like have more uncertainty in their lives. So I think in the North Hollywood building, I think it's down to like 7 right now as the average lease term. We're hoping to get that back up to around like 11 or 12 once things start to normalize. But that's what banks want. That's what we want. We want to be a multifamily product. So like the closer we get to like a year-long lease is what we were trying to achieve.
And how can you talk a little bit on a high level, when you outsource the operator to like Star City, Ollie, or those guys, how how does it work with them? Like, what kind of agreement are you signing, or what are they charging you guys?
Yeah, so it's like a management agreement like most property managers have. I guess they've gotten really smart in the space. They used to be more aggressive in how they wanted to like have NOI share, these are startups, but I think now pretty much all of them across the board, Star City, Common, who are probably the largest in the US, they're both just doing management agreements. And then you just like set a budget. It's really pretty much like a property manager with a higher touch is really it kind of some things resemble more like a hotel flag than a traditional multifamily property manager, but at the end of the day it's still a multifamily product.
Are you able to share like roughly? I mean, it's like you said, there's a lot more. It's a lot more management intensive. There's a lot more people. Is it more like a 10%, 15% kind of fee?
On the projects that are like north of 100 beds, it's usually just a 4% management fee.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. but you have to get the scale to get that sort of
Right.
rate. You know, on the boutique stuff, you're going to see higher fees just because it's harder to manage, and you know their resources can't be so like
For the
committed.
big projects, do they end up having somebody on site, like a dedicated
They'll
manager?
have
kind
not
of thing,
necessarily
or-
an on-site, usually like a dedicated person that'll work out of like the common space to, you know, they're most of these operators are pretty tech enabled, so they're pretty light in terms of like office space requirement. They try to do most of the stuff on their own platforms on the app. So they will have a dedicated person there, but it won't be like a management office per se.
Mm. And I have a question that I just thought of too. What do you do with Amazon packages?
Good question. So the Melrose project we have a a package concierge system in
Oh,
the
okay.
like there's
Like a
mail
locker
room.
kind of thing, or
Yes, yes. The smaller buildings is really hard to do that just so you have a lot of space. So it's sort of just like, you know, Amazon will drop packages off in the lobby and hopefully people bring them up to the units. Yeah, I'm still curious to see because I've seen a lot of buildings, you know, even multifamily buildings that even if you have the package system, you know, Amazon comes in, they have 10 boxes, they drop them on the floor and they leave, you know.
yeah.
It's just we have the infrastructure, so if they use it, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, okay. I think I'm caught up with all the questions. So I'm actually gonna hand the mic over to folks that want to ask their own questions. I'll do reverse order. Delia, would you like to turn on your mic and ask your questions to Derek?
Yes, I was wondering if if the door locks are hotel style. I'm just wondering how it's different than Airbnb.
Yeah, so we're specing now. We're using latch across all the portfolio for everything that's new. I'm not sure if you're familiar. They're like I don't know. It's an
Like
iPhone.
August, or
It's what? Sorry.
similar to August, where there's a Bluetooth
Yes. Yeah. So you
it's
basically kind of lock all the doors on your phone, and we've gone as far to put bedroom like locks on each of the bedrooms as well. So you just have your iPhone and unlocks the main entry door, the unit door in your bedroom, and you can lock your bedroom when you're not there. So it is sort of like very turnkey and just, easy to access all parts of the building.
And you said that most of the leases are they month to month, or you just try to get them for 11 months, or like how are they 6 months, 1 year, or?
We don't do anything less than 3 months is the minimum, but we try to push, we're obviously going to be paying a higher rate out of 3 months. We try to push most to 12.
Okay.
And we want to, that's where the sweet spot is being close to 12 as possible for, we can maybe talk about this in a bit, but it's, really about the agency financing we want to get for the takeout loan and to be as close to like a multifamily product as possible.
I see. Thank you.
Jackie, would you like to ask your question?
Oops.
Oh, okay. How do you guys handle conflicts, or people that fight or steal food, or real NPV real
Yeah.
world kind of stuff?
So a lot of the operators actually have like a conflict resolution person that is part of that to help, basically resolve roommate
Like an
disputes.
ombudsman kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, someone who essentially comes in if there's like two roommates that just can't stand each other, they'll try to relocate someone in a different building or a different part of the building, and see what the problem is. Most conflicts do tend to resolve on their own, but if they have to get involved, Common does have a team to deal with it.
Like a
And Star City as well.
residential advisor in college kind of thing?
Yeah, an RA, yeah, exactly.
Maribel, am I saying your name right? Do you want to ask your questions to Derek?
Sure, please. Thank you for all this information. I'll try and combine all my questions, which are all related to damage. Is if different roommates behave differently, they might damage a bedroom differently than the other. They have a different lease term. How do you do your terms? Because I assume you want to have some consistency. And then how do security deposits play into that to manage that?
We do like a typical security deposit. Most of the time it's like $1,000 a month is what we have is, depending on like assuming your credit checks out and you're like, don't have any dings on your rental history. Sometimes we might ask for a little bit more if they're maybe just, not the best tenant in the past. And was it the second part of your question was like, how do you deal with just like damages in terms of?
Right. Since everyone might it sounds like everyone could possibly have a different lease term. So do you, if someone moves out, and I assume you want to, if the flooring is damaged in the bedroom,
Mhm.
Isn't that disruptive to the other people when you're doing a turn on that bedroom?
It can be. We do, so the way we structure the leases though, so we have the overall lease for like the unit, right? Which is like unit 201, and that's for like 4 people that are in there. And then there's a separate lease rider that's sort of
Oh.
signed in tandem. And that has language about being able to access the unit for renting purposes and being able to access individual bedrooms in there. So there
Okay.
is language in our lease structure that allows us to gain access, not only for leasing, but also for the cleaning services that we provide. So I guess tenants are giving up sort of like 100% privacy all the time, but they are
Okay.
aware of like what we're doing in the unit. We have to maintain it, provide maintenance, cleaning, show it to a different prospective tenant, stuff like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Question. It looks like you have, these sort of pods, if you will, for lack of a better term in my mind. But, if you have individual beds that are empty in multiple pods and you have, an applicant who says, I'm looking for a place, I'm just curious if you do any kind of like personality assessment with the tenants and go, hey, we have a couple pods here and, this person's an extrovert. Let's put them over here with these people. I think they would get along better. I'm just,
I think Ollie had attempted to do something like that. It was called like Bed Vetter. It was like part of their tech platform. I don't know how much of that is still like working in the actual co-living space, because you're also bumping the Fair Housing Act laws as well. So you have to like, I don't know if you can screen potentially and have like an algorithm select tenants. I feel like that could open up yourself up to some litigation.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you kept it super high level, super broad. Hey, do you consider yourself introvert, extrovert, or
Sure.
extrovert, right? You don't get into age.
Send us your Myers-Briggs test
Right.
result.
Yeah.
all those
we
things.
don't necessarily do that kind of stuff. We're more like just, select the room that you like the room, like maybe you could like meet your roommate. You could meet like the house if they're there when you're touring, but there's not really like I'm not trying to match perfect roommates.
Right.
In a perfect world we would, but that's
Derek,
Jonathan? Yeah, go ahead.
I got a quick question. I'm just really curious about how you structure your long-term debt on the exit strategy, because it sounds like you classify more into the short-term rental market, which I know that a majority of the agency debt backers are not supporting right now. So would you mind going a bit more details about how your strategy is for structuring that debt or that refinance?
The short of it, we're not short term. We're like the average lease term that we're trying to hit is 11 months, which is consistent with traditional multi. That's what we will take to the bank to get takeout financing on the construction.
Gotcha. I'm only asking, I'm a numbers guy, so I find that interesting. It's always been around the 12-month mark from my experiences. So you're saying it's around the 11-month mark, which you're really trying to hit so you can get that exit strategy, right?
Typically you want to have about 85% of your leases on a 12-month.
Okay.
Is usually the number. And the agency will still enable you to have some shorter term, but as long as you're not going like, a month to month, if you're still like a 3 to 6 and showing renewals within the 3 to 6, that's usually okay. You don't get paying too bad for that.
And you're still able to get the, high balance commercial agency debt is your goal, is that right? Yeah.
I don't think anyone's actually refied with Freddie yet. That's a true co-living building, like sort of you see mixed buildings that have traditional multi and co-living together. They've gotten it. We've been having conversations with Wells that they think they could take us out with Fannie Freddie. So that remains to be proven, but I think it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that those large institutions are very slow to change, but if you can get that congratulations.
So how can a smaller investor or more of a mom and pop investor get involved or do something like this? They're not they don't have the track record or the bank account is six peak. Do you guys take on LP investors as well, or
Oh yeah.
or like
fundraise all day long.
if you found a nice nice vacant lot or infill lot close to the metro, like how can regular folks get involved with this?
I've seen everything, the co-living iterations down from like, you know, bungalows version is like a single family home that they're just finding, you know, 4 bedroom, 3-4 bedrooms and then renting out by the bedroom. You know, you could do your own sort of like small rehab project and then just like rent by the bedroom. I think that's probably like the easiest and cleanest like way to get into the market. But I think there's still a lot of opportunity in the space. I will say the boutique stuff is harder from a management perspective. You may have to end up self-managing more than say like building and then having a third party manage for you. Because I think a lot of the third parties, they started small and now they're scaling to a point where it doesn't make sense for them to do, you know, small 20 bed projects. They want to be able to manage and actually like make real fees.
Yeah, a friend of mine, they took a large duplex and turned it into like a 10-bedroom project kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and
But I would
for
say like to think entrepreneurially about the development and also the management as one piece. And I think that's where the opportunity, if you want to do a small scale co-living, that's where it has to kind of fit together.
Mhm. And what have you guys been seeing this past year or so? You know, how bad did it get, or was it still kind of okay in the co-living space during COVID, or are you seeing things picking back up at all?
Yeah, we have to compare ourselves a lot, like benchmark against like traditional multi is what we kind of like always looking to see how we're doing on, you know, occupancy and rents. We initially, like obviously in like April of 2020, we saw occupancy kind of increase or sorry, decrease, and then also rents kind of fell. They stabilized pretty quickly and then our occupancy kind of got back up. It was actually probably 10 basis points higher across most of the operators' portfolios than a traditional multifamily in that same market. You know, so we didn't see the same vacancy that we saw in multi, and then the rents are probably down like, depending on the market, between 5 and 10%.
Oh, that's not bad. San Francisco dipped like 30%. My
Yeah,
condo was like
exactly. So
nobody
like,
wanted it.
yeah, so we like our North Hollywood property. It's really like we're getting average rents sort of just like south of 1,400. We underwrote at that property for like 1,550, 1,600. So we're like 150 off from our underwriting in a pandemic.
What kind of expense ratio, and again, it might be a range, but what kind of expense ratio do you guys kind of estimate?
We're kind of running about 30%, but on a higher NOI base than you'd see like traditional multi. So your expense load is higher, but you're still getting more NOI per square foot.
Okay, cool. Am I overlooking anybody's questions? If you have questions, you can feel free to, again, pop them in the chat box or raise your, there's like a raise your hand feature.
I have a question. Hi. Back to the question of do you try to match your tenants? Have you considered having your current tenants interviewing like the potential tenants just to see would there be any problem with that?
No, because we're trying to rent beds, not make everyone happy.
I mean,
Ultimately.
would that reduce the potential conflicts, in the house or in wherever in the building?
Yeah, I guess in reality though, so like this is like a focus a lot of people, and maybe it's just I don't know, maybe it's just a different market that we're like leasing into, but we've not had much conflict on the roommate level, at least in the properties that we've opened. I just don't think it's a good protocol to basically have your existing tenants yay or nay a prospective tenant. And I know that there are operators out there that do work like that, and it just doesn't seem that scalable.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was curious what you guys' experience is as well. I mean, I was trying to think back when I was in college or in grad school. Like I think most of the time everybody just kind of mind their own business, and yes, like maybe there's sometimes dirty dishes in the sink that somebody forgot to do, or I didn't see it as that big of an issue. Hopefully not, but
Yeah, I mean, someone who's super like obsessive about keeping their space like as their own probably won't self-select into co-living.
yeah, that's a
the
good point
reality.
too.
You know, people are mostly coming for affordability, but then also, like I think like 30 to 40% in LA are just moving to LA for the first time. So there's a lot of people who just like want to live with people, just like know someone and have like a, you know, connection in the city. So they're willing to put themselves in an environment where they are like, you know, sharing space to have friends and meet people.
How do you advertise for tenants?
How do we advertise? Our partner does a lot of like the actual legwork of finding tenants, either through like a traditional like hot pads, for example, or they do their own marketing engine through social media and stuff.
How do you?
You got
There's
a good example. Just go to like Common's website and you'll see like how it's branded and marketed and streamlined, and you know, it's a whole marketing leasing engine that they've invested in.
So you guys do not advertise like on apartments.com as co-living spaces, or?
We won't be like marketing on Craigslist, but we'll go on like some of the apartment searching websites and then market there.
How do you screen the tenants for stuff you can actually screen, like income or W-2 or credit?
It's a normal tenant application, typical.
Okay. Great. Yeah. I mean, this stuff, you know, it's super interesting. And, you know, I like I mentioned, I always like outside the box thinking a little bit. In this case, you know, again, it's not purely profit driven, right? Like people talk about the triple P goal. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense again for the people that are living there. They're getting more bang for the buck. It's investors can get more returns as well, and we provide more housing units to the cities that desperately need them, instead of having homeless people sleeping in a parking lot that costs $2,500 a month per tent.
Yeah.
So I will. This is recorded. I will post this. I will see if there's any. Jackie, I think we kind of addressed the damage questions earlier already. You can play it back later when I post the video.
Someone asked about income criteria, and I would say it's probably like 3x. Usually it's like a typical, you know, rent check, which is also good because, you know, if you're applying for a new apartment in LA, you're most likely not going to find anything less than like $2,500. So we're getting to a wider tenant pool than we normally get to for a new build.
Okay. This will be the last one, and then I think we'll have to conclude this. But Maribel, do you want to ask, or you want me to just ask for you?
I see it. I could just answer. Yeah, I would say the average tenant age is about 28, but we have seen, it's interesting, on the North Hollywood site, we even saw a mother-daughter move in and take separate bedrooms in the same unit. So it's everything under the sun.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, again, I think this is fascinating stuff. I feel like this type of product is just getting started, honestly. And you know, maybe not every project is going to be a co-living project, but you know, I think it definitely hits a lot of marks for a lot of people in all different capacities. And you know, Derek, I would really want to thank you for taking your time, sharing with us your expertise. You know how these projects work, design, get into build, and manage and run properly as well. For folks that are interested to learn more about what you do or Six Peak, how can they get hold of you?
You have my contact. You can send it to the group. You have you could post it.
Okay, great.
It's fine. Yeah. djs@sixpeakcapital.com.
Mm-hmm.
Easy.
Okay.
I could even send them. I'll send it right here in the.
Yeah, you can put it in the chat, and for folks that you can write it down, or you can click on those three dots and save the chat transcript. Zoom has way too many features. They're cool features though. It's just like not a lot of people know, or I feel like my dad when I use Zoom, to be honest.
What is the internet?
What is breakout room? So again, thanks so much, Derek. I'll
Thanks
have
for having
to,
me.
yeah, no, I'll have to hit you up next time in the Silver Lake area to see if you're working from home or not. But wish you guys all the best for all the different projects you're working on, and hopefully I get to do a hard hat tour as well. So
Yeah, let me know. I'll take you through, and seeing is believing. You'll get to see what it actually looks and feels like in person.
Okay,
It's always
great.
fun
And
to
thank you
go to
everybody for
property.
joining. Yeah, definitely keep an eye out for updates. The California state restriction is supposed to be ending in a couple weeks. If you have suggestions for in-person meeting locations or any ideas or speakers, definitely let me know. I'm gonna be reaching out to our previous hosts to see when their office is opening and what that's how that's all gonna work. So stay tuned. Other than that, thank you all for joining, and we're gonna sign out for now.
Thank you.